Hi, class. Welcome to week 4 of NTI. So, last week we were talking about primary sources and secondary sources and looking at the Greco Persian War and how it was wrote by Herodotus, who is a Greek. So, his accounts may not have been the most accurate, and trying to determine what good sources were and bad sources were. And again, this week you're going to need this information and ability on finding good sources to gather good information. And the way we're going to do that is by talking about the end of the Greeks. So the first assignment you have is over the Peloponnesian War. So that was a war between Sparta versus Athens, and you have Sparta versus Athens from 431 to 404, and you have this assignment to work on. So you're going to read these directions, which simply just state to read the article and then answer the questions. And the learning target is being able to analyze why Athens and Sparta went to war. And the way you're going to know if you did this successfully or not is if you do everything in the MET box, which just simply states that you answered all the questions. They're being you're answering what's actually being asked. The answers are in complete sentences, and you get the information from the article. So last week I included like an audio reading, and that might have scared some of you away because it made the video appear longer than what it really was. So this week I'm just going to remind you that we have access to Google Read and Write, which it's an extension that you can add to your browser. So if you haven't added it yet, you would go up to your settings and click on extensions, and then you can search for like Google Read Write. And if you find Google Read Write, like you can add it to your browser if you haven't yet. And then when you add it, it'll show up here. So you can add Google Read Write to your browser, and that can read this article to you. You can also use Google Read and Write to type into this text box what you say. So if you can verbally say the answer, then you don't have to type it. And this looks like a lot, but that's because there's different pictures breaking stuff up, and the questions and text box break things up. So it's not as long as it appears. So that's your first assignment. And there's a video over the Persian War that goes with it. Your second assignment is focusing on Alexander the Great. So there's a video explaining who Alexander the Great was and why he's important, but he's a famous Greek person who's actually not Greek. He's from Macedonia, and which you'll learn about in the video, but he's still famous. And there's actually a lot of other famous ancient Greeks. So that's your other assignment, is you're going to read these directions and follow them, and you're going to either pick an ancient Greek person you already know, or if you don't know one, you can click there. You can click here, and it takes you to this, and it lists out famous ancient Greeks. So Herodotus, we talked about last week, being the father of history, and another guy, Thucydides, wrote history. Under Greek poets, there's Homer, which, so if you really like the Odyssey, then you might want to pick Homer and read about him. If you're into philosophy or thinkers, there's Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. If you really like math, you might want to pick the Pythagoras or Archimedes, or one of these mathematicians that you have learned about. You know the Pythagorean theorem that was started by Pythagoras, who was an ancient Greek. Or you might want to pick one of these leaders. We talk about Pericles a little bit in the Peloponnesian War lesson, so you might want to pick him. So you're going to pick one of these people and answer. You're going to write their name right here, and then you're going to answer and like describe who they were. So, like what they looked like, who they married, things like that. And then you're going to write what they did. And again, the text box for this actually ended up getting moved down. I'm going to try to fix that before posting this to you, but I might not be able to get the text box up there. And as you type into this text box, it'll make this text box longer, so it might move things around anyways. But so this box here goes with the what. If I can't get that moved back up there, I might have to. So yeah, and then when is like when the person lived, and you're gonna put that there, and then where is like what city state they lived in. So Athens, Sparta, and you can find an example of like what sort of information here. So it's about Alexander the Great, and it has the who, and then it has like the what and information about that, and then when and where. So you're going to fill in the box similar to this. So if you need help figuring out what kind of information goes in each box, you can look at this. But to emphasize, you cannot do Alexander the Great because he's the example. So he's already been done. So that's the second assignment this week of picking a famous Greek person. And we're learning about Alexander the Great and the end of the Greek Empire. And you may be wondering why the Greeks are so important. Well, the Greeks contributed a lot to Western civilization. So we are a Western civilization today. Like we're west of Greece and we're in the Western hemisphere. And some of the things they contributed was democracy, which we've talked about with the form of government. Our modern day alphabet comes from the Greeks. So here is the Greek letter, and then here's another letter, and then here's our letters for what it is. So the Greek alphabet turns into our alphabet, and then we change it some, but the bases of our alphabet, like as you can see, alpha, the A looks really similar, beta, the B looks really similar. The I and K's, they look really similar, and even the M and N's and the P's, so and the Y. So a lot of our letter, like our alphabet derives from theirs, and a lot of the letters look pretty much the same. The idea of the library also came from the Greeks. And then we've talked about how the Olympics were Greek. We get science and math from the Greek. I've mentioned the Pythagorean theorem, and there's other sciences. Architecture comes from the Greeks. So this picture down here, this one is the Parthenon, and this picture above it is our Jefferson County courthouse, like court building. And you can see that the columns are the same. This triangle here at the top is the same. The edging here is the same as this edging. So their architecture has a major impact on the modern world. And even here in Louisville, we see Greek architecture and Greek style. And then we've talked about Greek mythology with Zeus and the different gods. The idea of a lighthouse came from the Greeks. We don't have any lighthouses around here, but they were the first one to build a lighthouse to protect the coast. Standardized medicine came from the Greeks. The medicine came from Hippocrates, who's right here. So if you want to be a doctor or something, and that's why they have the Hippocratic oath that they take today. That so modern medicine comes from the Greeks, trial by jury comes from the Greeks, and even the theater, so acting theater comes from the Greeks, not necessarily movie theaters, but going the precursor to the modern day movie theater of going to see a show and comes from the Greeks. So your assignments are watching this introductory video, which you should be able to find on Google Classroom, and then watching the video on the Peloponnesian War and doing the activity that's associated with that, which was this activity, and then watching the video on Alexander the Great, and then doing the famous person activity, which was this one of picking your own famous ancient Greek and learning about them. And that one should be more interesting to you because you can find a subject area you like, and there's probably an ancient Greek that was involved with that. So, like the previous weeks, don't be afraid to ask questions. So you can privately post those on the assignment on Google Classroom, or if you're needing to have a Google Meet, then you can schedule a time with me. So just let me know when you're available and I can get online and we can have a Google Meet together. And then if you need to get back to the portal page, there's a link to that, and it has the information for this week on here, so you can check and see if you've done everything with that. So, hope you all have another great week. We only have a few more weeks left of school, so just hang in there and try to do your best on keeping up with the work so you don't have a bunch to do at the end. Like the other weeks, there's no true due date, but the goal should be to have this stuff done by April 6th, or by May 6th, sorry. So we're at the end of April. We're going into May. So try to have all this stuff done by May 6th if you can, because then you get your new assignments on May 7th. If you have anything you missed, go back and complete them. It's not late. You won't lose points. So just make sure you get your work turned in. Enjoy your week, class.